Have you ever felt like your mind is filled with different voices and emotions, constantly battling for attention? We often try to ignore or suppress them, but what if we embrace them instead? No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz teaches us just that. In this book, Schwartz explains that every part of our mind serves a purpose. Anger, fear, happiness, each emotion has a reason behind it. This book shows us how to understand and harmonize with these feelings, helping us build a peaceful relationship with the voices in our heads. It's like getting to know the different parts of ourselves and accepting them. When we fully embrace who we are, we start to feel balanced and at peace. Along this journey, you'll encounter stories and practical tools that will help you connect with the parts of your mind that need attention. This is a path to understanding yourself and loving yourself without judgment. So let's get ready for this incredible journey. Without further ado, let's dive into the fascinating insights of No Bad Parts. Sometimes we act in ways we don't even understand. It can feel like a new version of ourselves is taking over. We might burst into tears for no reason, or suddenly get angry and shout. We might laugh unexpectedly or become so enraged that we lose control. In the internal family systems IFS model, this is known as blending. It happens when a part of our mind blends with our true self, and we start thinking and feeling according to that part. In those moments, it's as if we lose touch with who we truly are, and the blended part takes over. When difficult situations remind us of past traumatic experiences, our response is often shaped by those old memories. Our true self can't handle the situation, and other parts of us step in to deal with it. Sometimes these parts overreact or make us feel numb. These parts haven't changed over time. They still see us as a child who needs protection. They believe if they aren't active, something bad will happen that the self can't handle. When these parts work together, they can create barriers in our personal growth, hinder our goals, and impact our mental and physical health. The goal of IFS is to separate these parts, making them realize we're now capable of handling life on our own. To start this process, there are a few simple steps. First, sit down in a quiet space and try to identify the different parts of your mind. Talk to them like you would to a small child. Ask them how they're feeling and if they need your help. Gradually focus on each part and try to get to know the new ones. As you begin to understand these parts, you'll start recognizing the thoughts, feelings, and desires that were troubling you. Reassure these parts that you are now in charge and they can trust you. Over time, as these parts start to separate, you'll feel a sense of lightness and peace within you. Your mind and body will open up, and you'll realize you are capable of handling everything on your own. This process can be challenging and requires time and patience, but with regular practice, you'll learn to manage these parts. If you don't, they may try to take over again. However, over time, these parts will start trusting you and let yourself lead. When yourself takes the lead in your life, nothing can stop you. In the end, you'll see positive changes in your life. This journey will allow you to understand your inner parts and give them a new role. You'll feel like the true leader of your life, and everything will gradually get better. We often believe we have only one mind and one personality. That drives all our thoughts and feelings. We never question it because we don't know any other way. But the internal family systems IFS model presents a different perspective, developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz. It was designed to help people who have experienced trauma. IFS teaches us how to connect with the different parts of our mind. It helps us understand ourselves and clarifies the relationship between our true self and the parts within us. Every person has many parts in their mind, and this doesn't mean we're sick. These parts make us who we are. When we think, these parts communicate with each other. Sometimes it feels like there are many voices in our head, debating with one another. One part may want to think rationally, while another wants to protect us from fear. When we believe we only have one mind, we start to fear our other parts. We try to suppress or ignore them. If we can't control our emotions, we get angry with ourselves and start to dislike who we are. If we see these parts as obstacles, they become problems. For example, if you have to speak at an event but are scared, you might try to suppress that fear. If that doesn't work, you may start seeing yourself as weak. Over time, you might avoid similar situations and lose your confidence. We often distance ourselves from genuine relationships because we feel ashamed of our identity. We let an inner critic take over, one that constantly points out our flaws. Even if we accomplish many things, We don't feel content with ourselves because we're not in harmony with our other parts. IFS says that suppressing emotions like anger, anxiety, or fear isn't the right solution. These emotions will surface eventually. Sometimes we explode in anger, experience panic attacks, or fall into depression. If we learn to understand these parts, they won't become problems. We need to understand their needs and make peace with them. You can become a good parent to these parts. None of these parts are bad. They are just trying to help you in some way. You may get angry to protect yourself from being hurt, or you may procrastinate to avoid exhaustion. If we don't talk to these parts and make them trust that we can handle situations now, they will keep holding us back. Some parts are particularly challenging, like excessive eating or thoughts of self-harm. But if we understand that these parts are trying to protect us from pain, we can deal with them more effectively. IFS teaches us that all our parts are working to protect us in some way. They have their own painful experiences. If we acknowledge their pain and make them trust that we've grown stronger, they will start supporting us. One method is called the step back technique. When two parts of your mind are in conflict, ask one part to step back so you can talk to the other part. You can practice this process on your own without a therapist. Just sit comfortably, take deep breaths, and observe what you're thinking and feeling. Focus on the strongest emotion and talk to it. Ask why it's there and what it needs. As you get to know your parts, you'll discover that there's always one part that is above the rest, your true self. Some parts might not be closely connected to it yet, but with continued practice, you'll learn to understand all your parts and heal old wounds. When you embrace yourself as the true leader, your life begins to change. The biggest advantage is that you start seeing things clearly. Once your protective parts stop holding you back, you can understand your true purpose. Your goals will differ from the parts that are only trying to keep you safe, but their perspective is often limited. These parts keep you stuck in past painful memories. So instead of living joyfully, you find yourself trying to avoid shame, loneliness, and fear. These parts often resort to quick fixes, like overeating, shopping, or using substances, but they don't let you truly live life. If you didn't feel safe in your childhood or past, you might hide your best qualities. But once you succeed in healing your old wounds, you begin to live openly. You no longer fear trusting others, and you start to truly enjoy life. You feel comfortable listening to your heart and connecting with others. Without yourself as the leader, your inner parts will keep fighting with each other, causing confusion and self-doubt. Some parts will ruin your day, while others will make you question yourself. But when yourself takes charge, everything falls into place, and life becomes more fulfilling. Sometimes we feel selfish or foolish, and we might do anything to protect our safety parts. But we need to understand that we are not these parts. We have to move beyond our old pain and live in the present. To do this, let's try a small exercise. Think of someone or an event that disturbs you. Imagine placing that person in a room with a glass window. Now look from the outside and tell your safety parts to let you handle the situation through yourself this time. Consider that you can face this situation with confidence, calmness, and patience. Now visualize how you would deal with that person using the qualities of yourself. You will realize that they cannot hurt you. When yourself becomes your leader, you understand that others behave in certain ways due to their past pain. And as you delve deeper into this understanding, you start to feel empathy for them. Sometimes yourself naturally becomes the leader, especially when you are completely immersed in a task and find joy in it. This state is called flow, where your attention is entirely on the task, and you don't need any external rewards. This state occurs when all your parts work together in one direction, and there is no inner conflict. The more you understand and heal your parts, the more connected you become to yourself, allowing you to live your life without interruption. A crucial aspect of psychotherapy is that it gives us the power to understand our inner parts. We often tend to judge ourselves upon witnessing the excessive emotional behaviors of some inner parts. For instance, when we experience a panic attack and have trouble breathing, we may think we are sick or need help. But in internal family systems IFS, it is understood that these parts are not our true identity. Rather, they are trying to protect us. Those who grow up in loving and nurturing environments find it easier to harmonize with their inner parts. Such individuals do not see their parts as adversaries. All their parts work together peacefully, and they remain connected to their self. The main goal of IFS is to free these parts from their protective responsibilities and return them to their normal state. It aims to restore trust in ourself. When the self leads us, we become free from negative emotions like loneliness, shame, and anxiety. This is why the healing process in IFS is so significant. Healing means addressing those parts that hinder our progress. To heal our parts means to promote harmony within our internal system. The parts that heal do not disappear. They reconnect with each other, creating a better system. As soon as you heal a part, you give it a chance to live again. Instead of hiding or suppressing it, you heal its past and give it new responsibilities. Cheryl's story. When Cheryl's boyfriend proposed to her, instead of being happy, she felt scared. She loved him deeply, but her inner fear forced her to question the decision. Cheryl wondered if she had overlooked some red flags. To resolve this confusion, she spoke with Richard Schwartz. He advised her to focus on her fears. Initially, this was difficult because her inner parts were preventing her from reaching that fear. But as these parts receded, Cheryl asked herself why she was scared. She attempted to understand her parts and recalled the trauma from her father. That fear had developed during that time. Gradually, Cheryl tried to heal her fears. She decided to provide love and safety to that little girl within her. When she shared her childhood experiences, painful memories of her father resurfaced, triggering fear and anxiety inside her. But Cheryl rescued that little girl from her painful situation. Now that girl was safe with Cheryl, and they began anew. Cheryl tried to show her parts that she was now safe. She didn't need protection anymore because she had grown up and could handle herself. Cheryl and Richard worked on healing some of her parts, and afterward, Cheryl happily married her boyfriend. However, healing parts in IFS can sometimes be risky. If you attempt it alone, feelings may arise that can be hard to manage. Therefore, the best approach is to seek help from a professional, or at least a trusted friend, during this journey. When you try to heal your parts, sometimes the safety parts become anxious and may overreact. So, it's wise to seek permission from the safety parts before healing. You must reassure them that you are not eliminating them, but giving them new responsibilities. Assign new roles to the healed parts. For example, you can transform your critical part into a positive advisor that you can trust. What changes will occur after healing? You may not know beforehand, but one thing is certain, you will feel more liberated. You will be able to live your life openly and be happier. When the self leads, you will experience new traits within yourself. You will become calm, confident, compassionate, creative, and courageous. You will find it easier to understand your life's purpose and feel more connected to yourself and the world. Understand that some of your qualities may be stronger than others. This happens because the self is always connected to other parts. The more you heal your parts, the more opportunities yourself will have to let effectively. You are not just your wounded parts. You are much stronger than them. We all have different parts within us that handle our experiences, emotions, and reactions. These parts are an essential part of our inner world. Sometimes they keep us safe, and at other times, they remind us of past experiences. In this script, we will discuss the different types of these parts and understand how they operate in our lives. One special type of part is called an exile. Exiles are parts that signify pain experienced in childhood. They are very delicate and sensitive. When we are children, these parts are filled with happiness and joy. But when they are hurt, they freeze. When we receive deep wounds, these parts lock away that pain. When an event reminds us of that pain, these parts start to feel the same pain again. When a child feels a lack of love from their parents, they may sense that no one cares for them. This feeling can bring back deep emotional pain when the exiles resurface, making us feel as if we are unable to live. This pain can be so overwhelming that many people struggle to get out of bed for days, haunted by their childhood wounds. To cope, we often try to suppress these painful parts, believing that ignoring them will make the pain go away. However, this approach is not effective. When we attempt to silence our exiles, they often experience even more suffering. Now, let's talk about managers. These parts act as our inner critics, telling us what is right or wrong. In challenging situations, they try to correct us by saying harsh things. For instance, a child who cares for younger siblings may struggle to care for themselves. Managers aim to keep us safe. However, sometimes their efforts can hold us back from moving forward. They want to keep us in a comfortable zone to avoid difficulties. But the truth is that these managers are also like children who never grew up. Next, we discuss firefighters. These parts act quickly to shield us from pain. When we encounter mental or emotional distress, firefighters spring into action, seeking immediate relief. They might engage in behaviors, like drinking or using drugs to provide temporary comfort. While firefighters offer a brief escape, they ultimately divert us from facing our true pain. Mona's story. Mona faced a mental health crisis for years ago and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She started taking medication and appeared successful on the outside, but inside, she was always afraid of relapsing. One day, she sought help from her therapist, Bob and Richard Schwartz. Richard advised Mona to locate the pain in her body. She discovered a painful spot in her chest, reminiscent of her time spent in a mental hospital. Richard encouraged her to confront that pain, leading Mona to realize that a little girl within her was being tormented by a boy. This revelation was so painful that it pushed Mona into depression. Richard suggested that Mona embrace that little girl with love. When she did, she experienced some relief. However, Mona's story took a troubling turn when suicidal thoughts began to surface. Her inner firefighters were desperately trying to manage the pain she was feeling. Richard communicated with Mona's suicidal part, explaining that death was not the solution to her suffering. This conversation brought Mona a sense of peace. The healing process requires time, patience, and courage. We must first understand our parts and help them feel safe before we can move forward. By recognizing and communicating with our inner parts, we can transform our lives. Once you grasp these parts, you can create a map of your inner world, helping you understand how these parts connect and how they can be healed. This journey allows you to uncover your true identity and comprehend your internal struggles. Our inner parts are crucial to our identity and experiences. When we nurture and understand these parts, we can redirect our lives toward a new purpose. As we move forward, various parts control our experiences, emotions, and reactions. These parts are tied to our childhood experiences, and we all require love, safety, and attention. Imagine that your inner parts are like small children needing your care. When you allow yourself to lead these parts, you begin to see life from a fresh perspective. The self represents the calm, wise, and nurturing part of us. When your self is active, you start caring for your other parts. For example, by understanding your fears, you can transform the old narratives associated with them. The parts that once attempted to protect you can now support your happiness and enjoyment in life. As your self takes the lead, your role shifts from merely safeguarding these parts to guiding them in the right direction. Exiles are parts that signify the pain experienced during childhood. For example, if a child grows up in an environment where they cannot express their emotions, they may struggle with relationships later in life. When a situation triggers past pain, the exile reawakens, causing feelings of neglect and insecurity. Managers are our inner critics, attempting to control us for safety. When facing difficult situations, managers repeatedly tell us we will fail. For instance, if someone fears public speaking, their manager might say, "You can't do this." While managers aim to protect us from failure and fear, they can sometimes inhibit our progress. Firefighters are the parts that act immediately to shield us from pain. When we are in stressful situations, these parts try to provide temporary relief. For example, when someone is overwhelmed with work stress, they may turn to alcohol or medication to escape. Firefighters offer short-term comfort but do not solve the underlying issues. Mona's story illustrates how our inner parts can influence our mental state. 4 years ago, Mona's mental balance deteriorated, leading to a bipolar diagnosis. Although she was on medication, she constantly feared a relapse. After seeking help from her therapist Bob and Richard Schwartz, Richard encouraged her to confront her pain. Mona realized that her inner child was once tormented by a boy. Richard advised her to provide love and comfort to that child. While Mona experienced some relief, she later faced suicidal thoughts. As her firefighters were struggling to manage her pain, Richard spoke to Mona's suicidal part, explaining that death is not the answer to her suffering. After this conversation, Mona found some solace. This process requires time, patience, and courage. We must understand our parts and help them feel safe before moving forward. When we acknowledge and communicate with our inner parts, we can change our lives. You have learned about these different parts, and you can now create a map of your inner world to understand how they connect and can be healed. This journey will help you discover your true identity and allow you to understand your inner struggles. These inner parts are essential to our identity and experiences. When we care for and understand these parts, we can redirect our lives toward new possibilities. No Bad Parts is a special book that encourages us to understand and embrace our various inner parts. It explains that no part of us is wrong. Every part exists for a reason based on our experiences. The self is our calm and wise component. When the self guides our lives, we begin to take care of our other parts, leading to a happier and more balanced life. This book discusses 3 main types of parts: exiles, which symbolize our pain and bad memories; managers, which attempt to control our experiences; and firefighters, which act to provide immediate relief. Understanding and embracing these parts is essential for the healing process. We must engage in dialogue with our inner parts to heal them. This journey takes patience and time, and by using internal family systems IFS, we can strengthen our relationships. Understanding our parts helps us empathize with others, leading to better relationships. No Bad Parts serves as a guide, helping us learn more about ourselves and emphasizing the need for love and care for our inner parts. By nurturing and understanding these parts, we can transform our lives. This summary ends here. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on what resonated with you and what didn't. To hear more fantastic books, subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you great content. Thank you for giving us your precious time. We are truly grateful.